Welcome to CVM Stories, the podcast on customer value management. Together, we explore how companies can be more successful and the customers happier through the use of latest customer value management techniques. Learn key commercial and analytical insights from telecoms, retail, finance, and other industries that drive CVM forward. Hi, I'm your host Šarūnas. Today, my guest is Rūta Kriščiūnaitė-Hartley, Head of Shopper Marketing and Insight at IKI, one of the largest grocery chains in Lithuania. Rūta's background is really unique. She's worked for some big names like Virgin Red in London and local telecom companies like Telia in the Baltics. I'm really keen to explore the differences between retail and telecom industries when it comes to customer value management. CVM Stories is produced by Exacaster. We help companies take their customer value management to the next level. To stay updated on our latest episodes, subscribe to the podcast or sign up for an email newsletter at exacaster.com/CVM Stories. Rūta, welcome to CVM Stories. Very nice to have you.
Very nice to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, so you are quite a unique guest because you have very diverse experiences, different backgrounds. You worked in retail, you worked in telco, you worked as a consultant, now you work as Head of Shopper Insights and Analytics at grocery store IKI. So can you tell us a little bit about your kind of story? What have you done?
Sure. So I have worked, yes, in these industries that you have mentioned, but definitely my biggest experience is working with retailers and with retail data. But I have worked in telco industry and also worked for a company that was building a loyalty program. So I was quite lucky, as in I have enjoyed actually working in all of these places. But retail is my home. I feel really comfortable here. If you ask me to put in two words, kind of how do I describe these industries, I would say retail is crazy fast. Telco is digital transformation. I would put these two words together. And loyalty program, building that was crazy fun. It was a really fun experience. So, this is
sounds short. Like very, very interesting area overall to be as a professional in these days. So we have lots of data, new tools, lots of new techniques, but maybe you can go like very far back and tell us, how did you end up in this area? Was math your favorite subject at school or what?
So actually completely by chance, I was studying at university and I got an opportunity to work as a junior consultant in a Lithuanian consultancy company. By the way, I had a great mentor there. And I got this taste of having, defining a problem that a business is facing, and then gathering the data for it, analyzing the data, and then putting recommendations forward. And I really got hooked on this. I really, really enjoyed this experience. And then I moved to UK and studied for a master's degree in business analytics and consulting. And then after I graduated, I just got a call from a recruiter saying,
"That's it.
Would you be interested in joining this data analytics company?" And I thought, it's the area that I studied, so of course why not? And the rest is history. I fell in love with data analytics in the first company I worked for.
Wow, UK. Very nice. So you were lucky. If you would think about other people looking for a career today, would you recommend this career? Is this all that you dreamed it to be now, many years later?
I absolutely would recommend this career.
Okay.
Absolutely, 100%. I think data analytics, data science, data engineering, all the data-related professions are the future. I think it holds massive opportunity. It is growing now. I think it will continue growing for a long time. So, and I think the longer we go, the more we will use data day to day. So I think data is we 10 years ago we used to hear data is the new oil, and it's a cliche, but I believe in it. Data is really, really important for us now, and it will be even more important in the future, I believe.
Yeah. What excites you most about it? Is it like you have a new data set, you can't wait to get your hands dirty with it, or is it more like you've done the work, you launched everything, and you're just waiting for the impact to show up? Which part of this is really exciting?
The most exciting part for me about being in this analytics field is the ability to ask and to answer the question why. I view myself as an insights analyst. So I am not an analyst who will just present, what happened, like stats. I have this natural curiosity about why I see something in data, and natural want to dig deeper and to understand and to form a hypothesis and to answer these hypotheses with data. And this is the most interesting part for me. And of course, the fact that I can use whatever insights I found or recommendations I made and then use it to actually get business value. Obviously, this is a really, really important part of analytics as well.
Yeah. When do you know where to stop? How do you know where to stop when you ask why? It's always you can spend endless hours.
It's a great question because I just asked that question myself yesterday. I was analyzing data, and you're absolutely right. It's going deeper and deeper, and it's with insights. It's finding an answer and then saying, right, but why? Why did that happen? And then you run some query again and you find another answer and then you say, right, but why did that happen?
Yeah.
And it's just, you at some point, obviously time makes you stop.
Yeah, the deadline comes.
Comes and you say, okay, well, I think I have enough information to make my recommendation or make a conclusion, and then you stop. But potentially it can be a never-ending
so kind of
thing.
Natural curiosity drives you forward endlessly. Yeah.
Yes.
What are the hard challenges that you see at work today, like in this area? What's really difficult?
One thing that is common across all industries and all companies is the access to data. Access to data is not very easy. I wish we lived in a world where everyone in the company could have easy access to data and they could use that for their day-to-day decision making. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Also, kind of in terms of data, the biggest challenges are the first parts of data gathering and warehousing, right? The engineering parts. Where it's very common to have data in various warehouses, Excel sheets, and
scattered
around, and then you obviously need to connect it, and a lot of times, because you need a quick answer, you will connect it in a really not very efficient way, and you think I will only do it this time, and then I will just get this answer, and then this inefficient way of connecting data definitely continues forward, and then your colleagues 2 years later
you had a very nice report. Can you do it again?
Yeah. So these, I think these are really, really common. Not to understand the data is important, but maybe not to invest enough time and money and effort into really structuring it well, warehousing it well, making it really accessible to everyone in the organization.
I think we can see here a bit of a business case for the management, kind of. But I will ask a question specific about this. What percentage of time do you think is spent inefficiently in analytics? Maybe across your different companies that you have worked, what percentage would you say is definitely because of the tooling issues or historic underinvestment and so on? Average day.
I mean, I see it a lot more now when I work in the operational side, because when you work in analytics, you are
As a creator of analytics.
yes, you are naturally inclined to find ways to optimize things. You know, you will find tools, you will Google things, you will create shiny apps. You know, you will try to not do repetitive work. You will optimize it. But in operations,
As a user of analytics,
you know, it's a very different story, because people a lot of times they even are afraid of using Excel because they think this is an analytics tool. So they will continue doing repetitive tasks that that like an easy, let's say, VBA code
script, macro,
would solve and would save them so much time. But people are for some reason they accept it. I think analysts accept it a lot less, because they question and they go to the managers and they say, well, I don't want to do this repetitive task. It's not interesting for me. People in operations a lot of times don't question it. They just,
just do it.
They just do it. And I feel so sorry. I feel so sorry for it. And if you ask me the proportion of time that is spent on the things that could be made a lot more efficient if you got the data correctly and the engineering part correctly, is huge. It's huge. It's
10%?
No, I think definitely more.
Okay.
I would go as far as 50% of the time.
So especially in the data-heavy roles, if you're like doing, I don't know, pricing or like analysis of campaigns and things like that.
Yes, or even planning, definitely. So.
Okay, that's a very interesting insight. You know, in data science, it is said that 90% of the work is preparing the data and 10% is the data science bit. Now you're saying that 50% of operations management is basically data preparing as well, right? So that's a huge inefficiency.
It is. And actually, currently in my position, we are also kind of recognizing this problem, and we are, building tools. Really, the problem with this inefficient way of kind of doing repetitive tasks week on week is the fact that we don't gather and store data correctly in a correct way. Really, it's so to me, I want to solve this problem. I want to have a good structure, the way that we gather data, the way that we store it, the way that we use it later, and I believe we will have massive efficiency savings once this tool we're working on right now will be implemented.
Very nice. Yeah. So maybe we can talk a little bit about career advice as well in this area. So let's say someone is thinking of a career in analytics or just starting it. What experiences would you recommend to go through? So you mentioned here this consulting experience was very kind of good in hooking you into this area. Maybe you can share what would be your ideal career path for a young Ruta.
Okay. So actually, I will maybe start by kind of talking about a common misconception about an analyst or a data scientist, that they have to come from maths or stats background. That you have to finish mathematics or statistics to get into data analytics or data science. And from my experience, it's definitely not the case. I've worked with great analysts who have come from various backgrounds, from
architect,
history, and literature, definitely physics, but law, so if I think I've mentioned that I think this natural curiosity of if a person has a natural curiosity to understand why something is happening, if they want to dig deep, and if they are problem solving, no, it does not matter which background or which academic background you have. I believe you can definitely get into data analytics and data science.
That's a very good encouragement for everyone who thought, well, I'm not good at math, so analytics is not for me. It is for you. It's not just about the numbers. I'm actually pretty bad at numbers myself, but I'm very curious to solve problems. So you kind of, as long as it's plus or minus 5%, it's good enough for me. But of course, others would say, no, it's plus or minus 0.001.
Yes.
So yeah, there is this degree of attention to detail and like extreme accuracy, but in fast-moving business, sometimes it's even harmful, right? Because you get stuck on a small detail, the big picture is already clear.
Of course, of course. So two points that I have to make about this. Actually, before we go into this, another thing I wanted to mention is another misconception I hear about getting into data analytics is that you have to be young. That is a young profession.
That's an interesting point.
And it's not true. I have seen, and I feel I have really great respect for people who are moving into data analytics or data science when they're mature professionals, and and also coming from different, also various backgrounds. And the reason why I think is really good if you are more mature and you're moving into this field is because you have this you will bring benefits to the role. You will have this worldly understanding of how actually what you are solving or recommending can be used better in real life. Because
very good point. Your hypotheses are much more mature.
Yes.
I think that's and this totally dictates the quality of insight that you can get, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Because when you're a young analyst,
you have no idea.
You have no idea, and especially if you are really maths focused and stats focused. And I have also seen this happen when analysts are so excited to come up with a new algorithm or a new methodology, or but if it goes onto a shelf and gathers dust, if a lot of times young people don't know how to what they have come up with, how to use it in real life, and
how to sell the results, convince the organization.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of times, they use very complex language and complex way of explaining things to management.
You remind me of quite many presentations I have seen.
So as a mature person coming into this field, you have gone through this school already. You know that to sell an idea to management, you have to speak in really simple, easy to understand
business
terms,
language,
revenue. Yes, exactly. And this is, to me, this last part of analytics, when you extract data, you transform it, you analyze it, you you create recommendations, and then you implement these recommendations, and you get business value out of it. This is such an important part. So whoever does this part well, is going to do really, really well.
I'll basically rephrase you. As long as you know how to use the data, you're good. Because you can figure out how to prepare everything and get the answers, but actually knowing where to use it is basically the key to success.
Definitely.
Very good. Thank you. I think this is completely, let's say, new maybe for people who thought that this is not for me, right? Yeah. So maybe let's just spend a brief moment about your free time as well. What do you do to unwind from all the business and all the numbers? Is there any hobby that you use to relax?
So my answer now is very different from my answer 5 years ago. So right now, what I do with time outside of work is I have a small child, and it's just seeing them develop and grow and is amazing and fascinating. So, and it takes a lot of my time. But to wind down from work, nature is the best thing. Spending time in nature for me is the place where I can feel like I'm resting.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, very good. Yeah, I recently read about this Dutch way of relaxing, which is called doing nothing.
Okay.
On purpose, like, maybe staring at a lake or a tree, and I just realized that actually, I like to do this from time to time. Just no podcast, nothing, no computer, no telephone, just do nothing for half an hour. It's another way of
reloading your brain.
Reloading the analytical brain that's always crunching numbers and coming up with hypotheses.
It's actually, I think, a really hard skill.
It's
a really difficult skill to be able to relax doing nothing.
So I think let's touch a bit on the customer value management topic, and this is a specific term, maybe even, and I suspect that it's also different between telecommunications and retail. So how do you call this thing in telco, and how do you call it in retail? What's the terminology used?
So CVM, customer value management, I think is the more, from my experience, more frequently used in retail. In telco. In telco. In retail, the term that is used more frequently is customer centricity. And then if you try to put these two terms next to each other, customer centricity and CVM, I would say CVM is probably a more specific way of maximizing the relationship between the customer and the business, while customer centricity is a more broader term. But in terms of kind of definition, definitions like cross-sell and upsell and loyalty and segmentation and offer and campaign, these are the same.
So basically the label at the top is different, but the contents of the box is pretty much similar.
It's quite similar, but then I think we need to also think about the differences, right, between retail and telco and the way they interact with customers. So in telco we have more of a relationship with the customer because they sign a contract. It's the life cycle is a lot more clearly defined. Customer is more loyal. They sign a contract and they are usually not looking at switching to a competitor. So there's like this a little bit forced loyalty to a company, and the consumption of the product is long term. You will use this product for a long term, and also this two-way communication between the client and the customer because it's a service. You're buying a service, and you expect, as when you purchase a service, you expect service management to be a part of the deal. So you will call the company and you will say, oh, my Wi-Fi is not, and you will expect somebody to come and fix it. So it's kind of like this two-way.
The communication is naturally built into the product, you would say, because it is a communication product, so you kind of expect to use it. Yeah, I think this is a pretty big, obvious advantage that the telecom market has, but they don't realize how hard it is in other sectors where you don't have the communication channel in place.
Yes.
How do you reach the customer? All of a sudden, what was obvious is completely missing, right?
Exactly. And telco business model is subscription maximization. Now, if we think about a different industry like retail, has a very different relationship with the customer. It's the product that a customer will consume is short term or like short or medium. They will consume the product very quickly normally. There is no contract
Yeah.
There is a lot more competition in the market between major players. It's a lot more transaction based. And there is no really two-way communication. You won't call a grocery store and
Yeah. At least not today.
Yes. So I think because of the nature of these differences, CVM is naturally more important to the telco industry because they have that relationship for, let's say, 2 years of a contract.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's in some ways easier, and to kind of like maximize the value both for the customer and for the company during those 2 years.
But isn't that useful as a vision to have when you come to retail and say, but still you're only shopping in 2 or 3 shopping centers in your life? I mean, that's next to home, next to office, next to the kindergarten. That's it. So kind of your relationship is still there.
Yeah.
It's just that the retailer loses it through all of these transactions. I mean, there's just so much individual purchases, maybe some of them not done with a loyalty card. So you lose the understanding that actually the customer is pretty much very, very long term.
Yeah.
So when you bring this vision, what does that give you in retail? Are you able to push the understanding of a company in a slightly different way?
Yes, of course. So I think that this is what retailers are trying to do with loyalty programs, because with the loyalty program, you are building that relationship with the customer, and you are understanding how they shop and how often, and you can calculate their share of wallet, how much of their grocery spend they spend in one or in your shop, let's say. So of course, and this is probably this is probably trying to take this aspect from telco, and to manage and to extract value both for the customer and for the retailer, through that relationship building. Through the loyalty card, because loyalty program also gives you an easier way of communicating with the client, and
maybe you can tell a bit what is happening with loyalty programs overall globally. I mean, there was a time when the loyalty card was launched and introduced for the first time in the UK, completely revolutionary, and you were part of that market. And nowadays it's completely kind of fragmented, different. Is loyalty program still a super crucial piece of work with the customers in retail, or is it changing?
I think loyalty program. It depends on the loyalty program, of course. And
the design, the mechanics of it.
Of course, and and we have loyalty programs where you have a paper card and you get a stamp, and they don't even collect any data, right? It's kind of like I guess the goal there is to increase frequency, which is fine. But I think loyalty program designed well and utilized well, I think is definitely really valuable.
So it's kind of a permanent thing. Yeah.
Yes, I think so, because it's about how you use loyalty program as a way of maximizing value also for your customer as well. So actually recently IKEA launched a new program where you can collect points and spend points, and there's a gamification element where you can play in a lottery and win prizes and win points, and you can so it's kind of this I believe that this is how a loyalty program should work. It needs to be fun. It obviously needs to give a reason for a customer to to come back to it and to be excited by it, and and also to offer value, because really the value of this program will be that we will be able to offer customers really, really relevant offers that for products that they like buying, not for some, not meat for vegetarians, and so I believe, in summary, I believe that a loyalty program used well is
crucial.
Is crucial, and I don't believe that the value of it diminishes over time.
Yeah. I think maybe just to add on what you said, I think pretty much every retailer has even an invisible loyalty program, you could say. Even if they just collect the email addresses, don't give any points. It's an e-commerce site, for instance. It is still essentially the same mechanics that should be in place of understanding what the customer is buying, using that insight to drive assortment, to drive offers. So kind of personalization or this customer centricity is really the kind of main direction. And then the detail of the tool might change, but the overall direction is the same, basically.
Yeah, of course.
Maybe you can comment one thing about why is personalization important in retail? What do you see?
So whenever any company communicates with a customer, I believe personalization is super important because people are complaining about the mass of emails and texts and marketing messages that they're getting day to day, and it's only increasing. It's not decreasing over time, and people, are more stressed, and their mental health is also more kind of, consumed and tense.
Yeah.
So if you send an email, let's take a retail example. If you send an email to a customer who, let's say, is a vegetarian, and you send them a great offer for sausage, they will, that will not, you will only anger the customer. They don't need that email. They will think, I go to your shopping center, frequently, and why are you sending me this?
So basically, what you're saying is the expectation from the customer is already there. They expect everything to be personalized.
Yeah, of course. And if you are spending time to create an email and to send it to the customer, you should also spend time to get to know the customer and to understand, is this email going to be relevant to this customer? Not just purely from the business perspective of will they actually take the offer or not, but also just from customer satisfaction and customer experience perspective. Because people do now start to expect that the business that they have a relationship and they go to frequently, that they will know about what that customer likes and enjoys. So I think personalization super important to telco and to retail and to all industries where where you have customers, basically.
Yeah, it's pretty much unavoidable.
Yes.
So let's talk about the product part of personalization. So telecoms are struggling. There's hundreds of offers, sometimes thousands of offers. And retail, how many products do you have?
So
what's the typical assortment size?
Tens of thousands of products.
Okay.
Typically tens of thousands of products.
So how do you personalize that?
Well, it obviously also depends on what the customer is like. We have in retail, we use customer segmentations and customer, segmenting the customers, and that helps us a little bit to understand better the customer base and what the customers are like and what the customers coming to the store.
So sort of grouping customers into buckets, groups, bigger, smaller.
Yes. So we have all sorts of customers, and a lot of customers will there will be a proportion of your customers who are not going to change the repertoire much. They will buy similar products week in and week out, and their affinity for new products or novelties or trial, this group of customers will be quite low. So for conservative, yes. Yeah. And so for these customers, it's quite easy. You know what they like, and you know what they buy, and you are not going to send them something that they don't like. You sometimes in analytics, you sometimes will calculate the score of what is the potential of this customer for liking this new product or a different product in the category, and then you will use the score. And also we have, obviously, we have loads of different types of customers, but there will be, on the other side of the scale, will be customers who love novelty and who are looking for new products all the time. And so again, you use algorithms and you use affinity scores of how likely is this customer to want to try something new, and what are the categories that they would like to try this product in, and really the end goal of all of this is to make life easier for the customer, because people who love novelties, love new products, they will love receiving an email saying, oh look, we think you might like this item, try it out, and here's a great discount for it.
Yeah, I think what you brought is a beautiful example of the many layers of personalization that actually exist out there in the world, not only segmenting the customers and giving offer A and offer B and offer C, but recognizing the higher level behavior, novelty seeker, conservative, life state, kids, just changing the whole recommendation approach based on the customer behavior. I think this is very hard. This insight is not obvious in industries with few products. But in retail, it's incredibly obvious, because you have the new products coming in, coming out, and you really get to experience this aspect of customer behavior. And in the telecom world, some companies believe still that I have one recommendation algorithm, it should produce one offer, and that's it. So really kind of narrow understanding of the diversity that it's out there.
Definitely.
So I think it's a very, very good example.
If you are a young analyst or new analyst and you are thinking of which industry to choose, I will be biased, but I would definitely say retail, just because of how much customer preference data there is.
It's amazing.
Because customer will tell you what they like or what they don't like, minimum twice a week. So it's just it's there for you. In telco, obviously you have other kinds of big data there, but in terms of customer choice, there is less data to understand what customer preference is.
I think it's a very, very good point, and I know that telcos are working to increase the product portfolios and the number of products they have. The devices are coming in, insurance, but even then, because these devices are normally higher value, you buy them one every 3 years, 5 years,
and sometimes you buy them for mom or dad,
exactly,
and it's still the signal of what customer likes is less frequent in telco.
Very nice. Cool. So I know it's a very difficult question. Which industry is more advanced in analytics, telco or retail?
So it depends on what you mean by advanced. I would say that telco is more advanced in digitalization and overall investment in data infrastructure. I think they put naturally, telcos, I think, will put more importance on this side, because their business is very much based on this. Retail, I think, has more natural ability to be customer centric. I haven't seen a retailer who is not customer centric.
Because you die.
Yes, because you die, exactly.
Yeah.
Because there's so much competition. If you are not customer centric, you will not be there. So it's very, every department in retail, in a retailer, will be thinking about the customer day in and day out naturally. Obviously, the more they use data to substance their their hypothesis and their thinking, the better. But they have this natural ability to really put customer at the center of what they do.
Yeah, that's, I think, a very, very nice way of putting it, that retailer is naturally customer centric.
Yeah.
And I have this one topic which I never know how retailers do it, but somehow you always have the latest and greatest trends on the shelves. So if it's like green product, it's already there. If it's eco-friendly, it's already there. How do you do this? How do you discover all the new trends out there?
So there are a few ways. Obviously, we track what's happening. We have quite a few sources to track what's happening in other markets with our competitors, and this natural need to satisfy the customer that is in retail. Category management constantly thinks about what new things to introduce into the category that would make customers happy. So
kind of customer centricity helps you there a lot as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay.
And a part of my job is market research as well. So also the data side helps us understand what customers do. Market research helps us understand why they do it, because we will never really fully understand why customers do something from data. So then you use another great tool that you have, asking customers their motivation for doing things, and about their needs. And
I think this is an area where we see the traditional analytics and the big data analytics kind of nicely combining and supporting one another.
Yes.
Yes. Very, very, very nice. Yeah, so let's talk about geographic differences. So you spent a fair amount of time in the UK and now working in the Baltics and Lithuania. So how does a huge market compare to a small market? What are the differences in the, let's say, loyalty management or customer value management? What springs to mind?
Okay, so I guess the biggest difference is I have to say that UK is more data mature, and from the experience that I've had, they utilize data really, really well.
Is the data shared more widely in the organization in UK, for instance, versus here?
So from my experience, yes, data is more easier accessible in where I have worked, and when I say data, we have to maybe make it clear, because it's not that data is not used in Lithuania. Data absolutely is used in Lithuania, and loads of data, and we have loads of sources of data. I'm specifically talking about customer data. So customer analytics and customer data and understanding the customer behavior from data is used. I would say maybe the maturity of that is higher in the UK.
Wasn't the first program launched like in the 80s maybe, when Tesco launched it first, right? So this is like another 20 extra years of experience in the market. Yeah.
Yes, there's more experience in the market, but I can't say that Baltics is less less mature, because I actually UK is just, I would say, more mature compared to the rest of the world.
Okay.
In this data, customer data analytics side. So I have worked with other retailers as well in Asia, specifically, and it's actually similar to Lithuania, where I would say the customer analytics and focus on customer analytics, data coming about customer analytics is increasing. The importance of it is understood, and it's utilized, obviously, but the potential is still massive.
What about the market size impact in terms of just the data volumes or the diversity of different behaviors? Is that a challenge in like when you're looking at this large market versus a small market, or do you have the same?
No, I would say, I guess another big important part of data is the processing. How fast you process. Big quantities of data. But there are many similarities in retail across markets. Many similarities. So I think bananas is, number one product everywhere.
Much,
yeah. So it's like there are definitely certain things that customers in a grocery retail market do very similarly across the world, and obviously, the way how they respond to promotions and how they respond to price changes, which items are price elastic and which are not, is very similar across markets as well. And obviously, differences, of course, are regional differences. So preference for regional products,
ethnic products, regional products.
Yeah.
Indian food and all sorts of ethnic ingredients.
So you wouldn't find šaltibarščiai in UK, So
yeah, even the basic sour cream is very difficult to find sometimes.
Actually, no, sour cream is quite common in UK, and beetroot as well. But the combination of šaltibarščiai for some reason is not.
Yeah, this is the unique Lithuanian pink soup for those who don't know.
Yes. So definitely. But for example, customer segments, sometimes retailers use different segmentations about customers. So they cut customer base data in many ways. One of them is lifestyle or needs-based segmentation. These segments have actually had experience of kind of either directly or indirectly being involved with segmentation creation for a few retailers. These segments are very similar.
So they travel between countries, is what you're saying. Okay, that's very interesting, yeah.
And so I would say I definitely wouldn't say that the size of the market, the amount of people is or customers has
a big impact.
A big impact, yeah.
Maybe you can highlight some areas in terms of analytical techniques that we have to catch up with in the smaller markets versus the bigger markets, or is everything up to date? What you're seeing?
So I think if we talk about the future for retail. Because maybe this is kind of to me it's a more interesting topic, but like where I believe retail analytics is going. It's going to be about optimization. It's going to be promotions optimization, pricing optimization, assortment optimization, supply chain optimization. And this is using AI and ML. Maybe the issue is that if you don't invest into the data engineering part and getting the data basics right, you will not be able to reap the benefits of optimization. So the sooner that the companies understand the importance of investing in data engineering, the sooner they will reap the benefits of AI and ML.
So it's sort of like some basic step that you have to reach.
Yeah.
And then the new opportunities unlock. If you don't do this, then this world is there, but you can't reach it. Yeah.
Like in a game, you know.
Yeah. This is level 1.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because if you manage your data in Excels, you will not be able to do price
this
optimization.
Just doesn't work. Yeah,
it won't work.
Yeah.
Operationally, process-wise, it won't work. So I'm really, really excited about this optimization part. I believe that in even probably quite near future, we will get most of our decisions made by machine learning.
Yeah.
You know, and it's, I don't feel threatened by it. I think it's amazing because
it just saves so much work.
It saves so much work, and it takes away this. An uncertainty of what is kind of the best product to put on promotion. Let's say it's if you have a data-driven recommendation, it's easier. You can and especially if you put AI and ML into practice and you see it working and you see it bringing business results, you will trust it more and more, and I believe that's going to be amazing for retailers.
Yeah. So maybe you can quickly comment. I have 2 questions about AI, but first question is just the basic level of usage today in retail. I don't know, from 0 to 10. Where do you think the average retailer is in your experience? Like 10 is the vision, but where are we today?
Again, it depends on how good your data structure and data engineering part is. If you understand how important it is, and if you've invested in it, and if you are able to put some model on top quickly and get result quickly, then
you're very high. Basically.
You are high.
Okay.
You are high, of course. And I haven't seen a retailer that does this at a 10 level. Yet, but I believe it's coming very soon.
Yeah. So maybe as we talk about the models, there are, I don't know, different ways of coming up with a model or getting a model, and there are solutions out there in the market that you could basically say are kind of black boxes. You just buy the algorithm and you have no idea how it works. You just can tweak some parameters. On the other hand, you can just hire an in-house data science team and build everything in-house. But then pretty soon you're a huge effort to maintain and keep it up to date. So which of these approaches do you think is going to be the next way forward? Is it more the black boxes or more the build in-house or kind of combination of the two?
I have seen arguments for both, having a black box approach, and some people some people just being really against black box approaches, and knowing that you need to understand everything and exactly how everything is calculated. I think that I actually myself, I don't have a problem with the black box approach. I believe that if you are buying a service from, let's say, analytics provider, who is, every time you form a relationship with an analytics provider, there will be some business value and ROI negotiation, and they will, to tell you what the business value, the relationship or the product that you're buying will bring, and then you either believe it or but then over time you will be able normally to see and to track and to find. And if you're getting business value out of a black box approach,
that's great. Yeah.
Like, why not? Why do you need to understand exactly what's under? Loads of data scientists don't know how
the specific algorithm works inside.
Exactly. So
I think it's a very interesting perspective that you have, and also allows, if retailers adopt this mentality, it actually improves the competitive advantage, because then someone else can invest into intellectual property, build the tools, and then allow you to leverage that, rather than being kind of less efficient and building everything from scratch every time. Yeah. Okay, very, very interesting. So, just maybe touching a bit on the internal versus external experience. So you worked as a consultant serving large retailers. Now you work inside a large retailer using the tools and analytics. How do these two worlds compare?
They are very different, of course. As a consultant, you typically have one or a couple of points of contact with, let's say, your client, and your satisfaction comes from making the client happy and retaining the client. So this is kind of where you get the kind of your value of doing this job, and you have no influence over the result over the business result. That you recommend something, you advise something, and then it's you leave it to the client whether they choose to implement it or not, or how they implement it. It's you're just happy that you helped, and then you leave it at that, and then you discuss whether your client is happy or not. And then, but obviously as a retailer, it's very different, because as a consultant, I had long-term relationships with clients, and I wasn't just churning out presentations. I would see the implementation side of recommendations, and a lot of times I felt like I was a part of the retailer, but I never saw the actual real kitchen that happens. The implementation side of whatever a consultant is bringing you is very different, and sometimes there are. So now I'm learning to navigate a complex organization, and learning what to say, how and where, and to whom, to kind of like implement projects and to see value of projects. So I was like, a door has been, like if we take the game analogy, a secret door has been opened for me, and now I see lots of things I haven't seen before.
How do you compare the speeds of two worlds in consulting versus the, running the business?
In consulting, it's actually quite similar, because in consulting a client will call you, and they will last minute, and they will say everything is changing and you need to change everything and still deliver by the same deadline, and they are stressed, and then you obviously get stressed because
the deadlines are the same.
Yes, deadlines are the same. So the stress side, I would say, is similar, but in the actual retail, you are responsible for results, for business results, and this is where you get your satisfaction from, from seeing business results. So you have that kind of side that you don't have in consulting.
So kind of a different sense of ownership and scale of ownership.
Yes, of course, yes.
Yeah, very, very nice. So I think we are near the end of our discussion. Thank you, very, very, very interesting. But we have the traditional 3 questions, and I'll begin with the proudest moment of your career. So some success story, something happened that you were really proud of. Maybe you can share.
Actually, I will be quite. I don't know the right word to use, like quite cliche maybe.
Yeah.
I'm actually really happy, and I'm really proud that I chose this path. It makes me happy every day.
Okay.
Being in analytics and kind of analyzing data and utilizing analytics techniques and seeing how important it can be in business. I'm happy. I'm happy that I made that choice all these years ago.
Every day. Yeah, cool. So let's talk about the biggest failure. So maybe you did some very wrong analysis or some campaign completely flopped. Can you share?
Here I will say that
without revealing the details or secrets.
So here I'll be quite generic.
Yeah. Please.
But I will actually say the thing that I laugh at the most right now, looking like let's say 10 years back, is that I thought that Excel would be obsolete by now.
Okay.
In 2023, I thought, when I started my career, I thought in 2023, there will be no Excel left. We will use AI, and we won't even need to calculate anything. We will just ask.
So kind of your expectation about progress was very, let's say, optimistic. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I thought we will have something like ChatGPT where we can just ask a business question like, what were the sales and what were the drivers of sales during that time period, and
you get the answer back.
Yeah, and I think maybe there are already something like that existing, but it's definitely not widely used. Yeah. And Excel is definitely very much still the vehicle of the business.
Yeah.
So
cool. And so book or movie recommendation to understand what we are talking about. What would you recommend?
I would actually recommend a movie called Moneyball.
Okay.
I think it's 2011 movie, but it shows nicely how data science can be used in life and the impact of it.
I think it's a beautiful recommendation. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good one for analytics and data science.
So thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much. It was really nice to talk here with you, and thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening to CVM Stories. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a review. You can also ask us a question about a particular customer value management challenge you have at work. We will happily ask our experts to tackle your challenge in a future episode.